talk about the variety of charges the grand jury could have indicted this officer on. Walk us through them.
Well, you know, most people think first of murder, but that was never on the table here. The charges they might have looked at were assault, and there are 3 different degrees of assault, from first to the lightest of assaults, 3rd degree. Reckless endangerment, again, 3 different possible degrees, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Criminally negligent homicide, an option. Involuntary manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter. So there were a lot of options for this grand jury, none of which they took from the
medical
prosecutor.
examiner had ruled this as a homicide.
Yes.
You're a former defense attorney. Are you surprised that they couldn't find a single charge that would stick?
Yeah, it was homicide. It was tied to the chokehold by the medical examiner, although they did also mention the pre-existing conditions. But
Asthma, right?
Asthma. But once you have a police officer testifying, the grand jury is going to consider his version of events and, of course, his defenses, which are extraordinary for a police officer.
We see thousands of people taking to the streets last week in Ferguson. Before that, Trayvon Martin. Now there is this one. Is the grand jury process when it comes to a young African-American male broke?
Yeah, well, I think the whole criminal justice system is broken, and that is nowhere more so clear than when it comes to the division between law enforcement and communities of color. The question is whether or not a grand jury can act independently. And there's no judge in there, right? There's no cross-examination of witnesses, even of the police officer when he gives his version of events. So that isn't to say we should throw the grand jury process out altogether, but I have real questions about it when the defendant is a police officer and a prosecutor who works in a cozy relationship with police officers and police departments every other day of the year is now asked to try and bring an indictment in a confidential setting against a police officer in a police department with whom he works every day.
And those are the same issues we talked about with Ferguson
Yes,
last
and
week.
I fear we're going to be talking about again and again unless we try and fix the system.